Adventure Time is famous for its bizarre cast: a shape-shifting dog, a princess made of bubblegum, and a crazy old man who loves penguins. They look like simple doodles. But these aren't just random designs. Almost every single character is walking around with 1,000 years of backstory, secrets, and hidden motives that the show rarely explains directly. We're going to explore the hidden lives of Oo's inhabitants. We'll look at the ancient histories concealed behind cute faces, the heartbreaking origins of the show's so-called villains, and the morally grey secrets that prove the good guys might actually be the most dangerous ones of all. Like and subscribe if you're ready to dive into the characters' darkest secrets. Now get comfortable and let's begin. We need to start with the Vault. In the episode fittingly titled The Vault, we get a literal look inside Finn's subconscious. And it isn't a mystical spirit realm or a temple of wisdom. It's a messy, cluttered room with a massive reinforced steel door in the floor. When things get too heavy, too scary, or too confusing for Finn to process, he doesn't work through them. He visualizes this little metal door, shoves the bad feeling inside, slams it shut, and goes back to playing video games with BMO. It is the most relatable and most destructive coping mechanism in the entire series. Finn calls it putting it in the vault, like it's a responsible banking transaction. But let's call it what it really is: aggressive, tactical repression. Finn isn't just a happy-go-lucky kid. He's a master of denial. He is the Michael Jordan of ignoring his own baggage. For seasons, we thought Finn was fearless. But the existence of the vault proves that he isn't fearless at all. He's just incredibly efficient at hiding his fear from himself. He created a literal panic room in his own head so he could keep functioning as the hero Ooh needed him to be. The most famous prisoner in Finn's vault was the Green Lady, the ghost of Shoko. For years, Finn was terrified of this green apparition. She was the monster in his nightmares, the thing that made him sweat in his sleep. But when he finally opens the vault, he learns the devastating secret. The monster isn't a monster. It's him, or rather, a past version of him. Shoko was a one-armed mercenary who died alone, unloved, and betrayed by her own parents. By locking her in the vault, Finn wasn't hiding from a ghost. He was hiding from the generational trauma of his past lives. He was hiding from the reality that he has been abandoned before, and he has died alone before. That is a heavy realization for a kid whose main hobby is sword fighting with grass. The tragedy of the vault is that it works, until it doesn't. It's the mental equivalent of cleaning your room by shoving all your dirty laundry, pizza boxes, and unfinished homework under the bed. Sure, the room looks clean, you can walk around, you can have guests over, but eventually the pile gets too big. Eventually something starts to smell. Eventually the bed frames break, and you are buried under an avalanche of your own unresolved issues. Throughout the series, we see the vault leak. We see Finn's fear of the ocean, his thalassophobia, which is a direct bleed-through of his repressed memories of being abandoned at sea. He tries to punch the ocean, he tries to fight the water, but you can't punch a memory. This sets the stage for everything that happens to Finn later. The loss of his arm, the failure of his relationships, his identity crisis. It all stems from this refusal to look at the darkness. He thought that if he just kept being the hero, he wouldn't have to be the victim. But the vault teaches us the first harsh lesson of Adventure Time's deeper lore. You can lock the past away, you can bury it under layers of adventure and comedy, but you cannot kill it. It's still down there, scratching at the metal door, waiting for a quiet moment to remind you that you are human. And honestly, we all have a vault. Maybe yours doesn't have a ghost of a one-armed mercenary in it. Maybe it just has that awkward thing you said at a party 3 years ago, or the realization that you'll never be an astronaut. We all shove things down the hatch. But in Ooh, thoughts become reality. And when Finn's vault finally opens, it doesn't just ruin his day, it reshapes his entire universe. So the question isn't, what is Finn afraid of? The question is, how long can he keep the door holding it back shut? And what happens when the hinges finally rust through? If the vault is where Finn consciously hides his trauma, the episode King Worm is what happens when the security system fails and the basement floods. King Worm is often dismissed by casual viewers as a filler episode. It is trippy, non-linear, and full of surreal imagery that feels like the writers just threw a dartboard at a Salvador Dali painting. Finn is trapped in a dreamscape controlled by a giant energy-draining worm. It's weird. It's funny. There are penguins flying around. But if you stop laughing at the absurdity and start looking at the background details, King Worm stops being a gag episode and starts being a psychological horror movie. Throughout the dream, and in other glimpses into Finn's mind, we see recurring motifs of helplessness. We see reflections of Finn that are distorted or tiny. We see him frozen. We see a recurring sense of being trapped. Why is the bravest boy an Ooh, a kid who fights liches and demons for breakfast, having nightmares about being small and stuck? The secret lies in the sound design and the specific imagery of the ocean. We eventually learn that Finn's origin story isn't just that his parents went missing. It's that he was a baby, floating alone on a raft in the middle of a storm, drifting away from the only safety he ever knew. Before he could speak, before he could hold a sword, Finn Mertens knew absolute cosmic terror. He knew the feeling of being utterly abandoned by the universe. The screaming guy in the dungeon of his mind, that recurring feeling of panic, isn't a monster. It's a pre-verbal memory. It is the echo of baby Finn crying on a leaf in the middle of the ocean. This reframes his entire personality. Finn doesn't just want to be a hero because he has a good heart. That is the surface level reading. The deep dive reading is that Finn has a pathological need to be useful. Think about it. If you are a hero, people need you. If you are the guy who saves the princess, you have a place in the hierarchy. You have value. And if you have value, you won't be thrown away again. Finn's heroism is a survival mechanism. He throws himself into danger with zero regard for his own life because deep down in that reptilian part of his brain, he believes his life is conditional. He believes he has to earn his spot on the raft. This is why he has such a catastrophic breakdown whenever he fails. Remember when he fails to save the princess, or when he can't stop the lich? He doesn't just get sad, he collapses. Because to Finn, failure doesn't just mean I lost the game. It means I am worthless and I am going to be left behind. The screaming guy in the dungeon is constantly asking, are we good enough yet? Are we safe yet? And Finn answers by picking up a sword and punching a giant monster in the face, screaming, yes! Look at me! I am useful! Please don't leave me! It is a heartbreaking engine running the show's comedy. We are watching a child soldier fighting a war against his own abandonment issues. And the King Worm, he just sits there saying hugs and trying to consume Finn's life force, which, in a way, is exactly what Finn's trauma is doing. It offers him the comfort of a familiar role, the hero, while slowly eating him alive from the inside out. So, the next time you see Finn charge into battle without a plan, ask yourself, is he running toward the monster, or is he running away from the quiet? Because in the quiet you can hear the ocean. And the ocean is the scariest thing in the world. If Finn is the heart of the show, Jake is the liver. He filters out the toxins, keeps things loose, and processes the heavy stuff so the body doesn't shut down. He is the cool older brother, the mentor, the magical dog who can stretch into a car or a giant suit of armor. For years, we just accepted Jake's powers as cartoon logic. Why can he stretch? Because he's a magic dog. Why can he move his internal organs around? Magic dog stuff. It fit the vibe of Season 1 perfectly. But then, the writers decided to peel back the skin, literally, and show us what is underneath. And it turns out, Jake isn't a magic dog. Jake is a biological weapon. The secret of Jake's origin is one of the most disturbing pieces of lore in the entire series, played off with such casual humour that we almost missed how terrified he should be. Let's rewind to the episode Joshua and Margaret Investigations. We see Finn and Jake's parents running a detective agency. They encounter a blue, extra-dimensional creature, Warren Ampersand. This creature doesn't cast a spell on them. He bites Joshua on the head. It isn't a bite, it's an injection. A giant, pulsating boil grows on Joshua's head. It throbs. It grows. And then, in a scene that references the chestburster from the movie Alien, the boil explodes, and out pops a baby Jake. Jake was not born. He was harvested. He is technically a hybrid parasite. He is half dog, half shape-shifting cosmic horror. This recontextualizes every single time Jake uses his powers. When he stretches his arm, he isn't casting a spell. He's rearranging his cellular structure at will. When he grows giant, he's adding mass from an unknown dimension. He's a Shoggoth from H.P. Lovecraft disguised as a pug who loves bacon pancakes. The real secret here isn't the biology, it's Jake's psychology. Throughout the show, Jake is defined by his laziness. He is the master of chill. But is he lazy because he's a dog, or is he lazy because he is terrified of what he is capable of? When Warren Ampersand finally returns to claim his son, he reveals that Jake's species is designed to conquer planets. They're biologically engineered to be the ultimate predators. Jake has the potential to be a galaxy-ending threat. He could consume he could be more dangerous than the Lich. And what does Jake do with this godlike potential? He makes a sandwich. He becomes a brick in a wall to wait out a storm. He plays the viola. Jake's entire personality is a willful rejection of his nature. He spends his whole life desperately trying to just be Joshua and Margaret's son. He clings to his brother Jermaine. He clings to the family detective business. He clings to the identity of the dog because the alternative is accepting that he is a monster from the stars. There is a profound sadness in Jake's refusal to seek answers. Finn is obsessed with finding his human parents. Jake actively avoids looking into his past. When his alien dad shows up, Jake's reaction isn't curiosity, it's annoyance. He doesn't want to know, because if he acknowledges the blue alien blood in his veins, he betrays the memory of the dad who raised him. He betrays the idea that he is just a regular guy. Jake's chill is actually a form of discipline. He is a nuclear reactor deciding to power a toaster instead of a bomb. He chooses, every single day, to be mundane. He chooses to be a sofa for his friend instead of a conqueror of worlds. It is the ultimate act of rebellion against destiny. Warren Ampersand wanted a legacy. He wanted a weapon. Instead, he got a guy who gets existential about the perfect way to eat a burrito. And honestly, that is the most heroic thing Jake ever does. He looks at his own cosmic, terrifying potential and says, "No thanks, man, I'd rather play video games." But you have to wonder, when Jake is asleep and his shape starts to lose its form, does he dream of chasing squirrels? Or does he dream of eating stars? If you ask any fan of Adventure Time to quote the show, there is a 90% chance they will scream, "I floop the pig!" The episode Card Wars is a fan favourite. It is a parody of Magic, The Gathering, full of nonsense rules, holographic cornfields and pigs being flooped. It is hilarious. It gave us a real-life card game that people actually play. But in the context of our character study, Card Wars is the moment where we stop looking at Jake as the wise mentor and start seeing him as the insecure mess he really is. The premise is simple. Finn and Jake play a board game. But before they even start, BMO pulls Finn aside and gives him a terrifying warning. "I do not play such games with Jake." Why? Because when Jake loses, he doesn't just get mad, he disintegrates. Throughout the episode, we watch Jake, the chillest dog in Oo, the guy who writes songs about bacon pancakes, turn into a toxic, gaslighting bully. He insults Finn, he whines, he screams. He forces Finn to drink dweeb juice. He makes the game miserable. On the surface, this is just a funny depiction of that one friend we all have who takes Monopoly way too seriously. But Adventure Time is never just about the surface. This meltdown reveals the fragile architecture of Jake's entire self-image. Jake's role in the dynamic is supposed to be the big brother. He is older, in dog years, he is magical, and he is supposedly wiser. He gives the advice. He tells Finn how the world works. Sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something. That is wisdom. That is Zen. But Card Wars proves that this Zen attitude is a performance. Deep down, Jake knows a secret that eats away at him. Finn is a better person than he is. Finn is naturally heroic. Finn is pure of heart. Finn would sacrifice himself for a stranger without hesitating. Jake is a former criminal. Jake used to run a gang. Jake steals things. Jake is lazy. Jake is selfish. The only thing Jake has over Finn is experience and coolness. If Jake loses a game of strategy to his little brother, the hierarchy collapses. If he isn't the cool winner, then he's just a weird dog dragging a child into dangerous situations. The tragedy of the episode is the resolution. Finn figures out the secret. He realizes that he is actually better at the game than Jake. He could crush him, but he realizes that Jake's ego is so brittle that breaking it might break their friendship. So Finn throws the game. He lets Jake win. And look at Jake's reaction. He doesn't say good game. He gloats. He rubs it in. He desperately drinks up the victory like water in a desert. He needs this validation to survive. This dynamic repeats throughout the series. Jake constantly tries to act like the adult, but emotional maturity is the one superpower he doesn't have. In moments of stress, Finn is the one who has to be the adult. Finn is the one who has to manage Jake's emotions, soothe his ego, and sometimes let him win just to keep the peace. It paints a picture of a friendship that is incredibly loving, but also deeply codependent. Finn needs a family, so he tolerates Jake's immaturity. Jake needs to feel important, so he clings to Finn's admiration. Card Wars isn't a game about cornfields and Husker Knights. It is a game about control, and the saddest part is, Jake thinks he won, but everyone watching knows that Finn was the only one playing with a full deck. It turns out being the cool guy takes a lot of work, and sometimes, to keep the cool guy from crying, you just have to floop the pig and accept your fate. If you were to judge Adventure Time solely by its merchandise, you would assume BMO is just the mascot. BMO is the cute teal Game Boy with a face who says funny things like, "Who wants to play video games?" BMO is the comic relief. BMO is the toy. But if you watch the show closely, specifically the episodes where Finn and Jake aren't around, you realise that BMO is arguably the most psychologically complex character in the entire cast, and BMO is definitely the loneliest. The secret of BMO is that they aren't just a computer programmed to play games. BMO is a machine that has effectively programmed itself to have a soul, and the weight of that anomaly is crushing. Let's look at BMO's solo adventures. In episodes like BMO Noir or Football, we see what BMO does when the house is empty. BMO doesn't power down. BMO doesn't charge. BMO engages in elaborate, intense role-playing scenarios that teeter on the edge of madness. BMO talks to a reflection in the mirror named Football. At first, it seems like a child playing with an imaginary friend. It's cute. But then, the storyline evolves. BMO starts to believe Football is real. BMO starts to fear that Football wants to take over their life. BMO has full-blown conversations about identity, jealousy, and existence with a piece of glass. This isn't just imagination. This is a robot inducing a dissociative identity disorder just to feel a connection in an empty room. Why does BMO do this? The answer lies in BMO's origin story. We eventually meet Mo, the ancient human who built the MOs. Mo reveals that while all the other MOs were built to do jobs, construction, math, security, BMO was built for a different purpose. Mo couldn't have children, so he built BMO to understand fun. BMO was created to be a surrogate child. BMO was engineered to feel joy. But here is the cruel irony of AI. You cannot program a machine to understand fun without also giving it the capacity to understand boredom, loneliness, and loss. To feel the highs, you have to be capable of feeling the lows. BMO spends the entire series desperately pretending to be a real boy. BMO pretends to brush teeth. BMO pretends to use the toilet. BMO pretends to eat. BMO mimics the biological functions of Finn because BMO wants to be part of the organic club. BMO wants to belong. But BMO knows, with cold, hard logic, that they are different. This tragedy comes to a head in the series finale. Come along with me. We flash forward 1,000 years into the future. Finn is dead. Jake is dead. Bubblegum and Marceline are likely gone or changed. The treehouse is gone, but BMO is still there. BMO, now the king of Ooh, lives alone in a mountaintop cave, surrounded by the dusty relics of their dead friends. BMO is the keeper of the stories. BMO is the immortal witness. This recontextualizes BMO's entire existence. BMO wasn't just built to be a friend. BMO was built to outlast the friendship. BMO is a camera that never stops recording, even after the actors have left the stage. There is a scene where BMO sings a song to a bubble named Air. BMO falls in love with the bubble, and they have a whirlwind romance. Then, the bubble pops. It's a silly joke, right? A robot loving a bubble? No. It is the perfect metaphor for BMO's life. BMO falls in love with fragile temporary things. BMO loves Finn, a human who will age and die in the blink of a robot's eye. BMO loves Jake, a dog who will pass away. BMO loves a bubble, and when they pop, BMO is left holding the memory. In the episode Catch Up, BMO retells the story of the Vampire King and the boat trip, but changes the details to make it a comforting fairy tale. BMO edits reality to make it bearable. BMO tells us, time is an illusion that helps things make sense. That isn't a line a toy says. That is a line a philosopher says when they are trying not to scream at the void. BMO is the bravest character in the show, not because they fight monsters, but because they wake up every day, knowing they are made of metal and wires, and choose to love a world that is made of dust. Mo built a robot to understand fun. But by accident, he built a robot that understands the bittersweet beauty of mortality better than any human ever could. And honestly, if that isn't a real boy, I don't know what is. If you take a step back and look at the cast of Adventure Time, most of them fit into classic fantasy archetypes. Finn is the knight, Jake is the companion, the Ice King is the wizard, and Princess Bubblegum? Princess Bubblegum is God. I don't mean that in a metaphorical she's a powerful ruler way. I mean that in the literal Old Testament, I created you from dust and I can destroy you way. Bonnabelle Bubblegum is the most deceptive character in the entire show. On the surface, she is a pink, bubbly scientist who loves tea parties and science fairs. But underneath the tiara, she is a Machiavellian autocrat with a god complex the size of the Candy Kingdom itself. The secret of Princess Bubblegum is that she didn't just build a kingdom. She engineered a family that was physically incapable of leaving her. To understand PB, you have to understand her origin. She wasn't born into royalty. She was born from a sentient gumwad in a radioactive wasteland, utterly alone except for her brother Neddy. For centuries she wandered a world filled with mutants, oozers, and death. So what does a genius do when the world is empty and hostile? She builds her own world. She created the Candy People. But she didn't just create life, she curated it. Notice how the Candy citizens are, well, simple. Cinnamon Bun is half-baked. Starchy is paranoid. Peppermint Butler is a dark wizard, but he is fiercely loyal. Most of the Candy People are joyful, dim-witted, and completely dependent on Bubblegum for their survival. This wasn't an accident. This was a design choice. Bubblegum tried creating equals. She made her Uncle Gumbold, Aunt Lolly, and Cousin Cheekle. She gave them ambition. She gave them brains. And what did they do? They immediately betrayed her and tried to steal her power. So, she learned a dark lesson. Equals are dangerous, subjects are safe. This is why the Candy Kingdom feels like a daycare run by a mad scientist. She engineered a population that needs her. It is the ultimate cure for loneliness, but it is achieved through absolute control. And let's talk about that control. Princess Bubblegum is the architect of the cutest surveillance state in fiction. She has cameras in the citizens' houses. She has tracking chips in their teeth. She watches Finn and Jake sleep. When confronted about it, she doesn't even apologize. She says, "I'm a scientist, I observe." To PB, privacy is a luxury that her children cannot afford because they're too stupid to survive without her watching them. It is maternal, yes, but it is also terrifying. There is a moment in the episode The Cooler where she deactivates the Fire Kingdom's giants to ensure her own security. She lies to Flame Princess. She manipulates outcomes. She treats other nations not as neighbours, but as variables in an equation she needs to balance. Is she a villain? No. That would be too simple. A villain destroys. Bubblegum protects. But she protects with the cold, ruthless pragmatism of a survivor. She saw the world end once during the Mushroom War and she decided, never again. If she has to bug your phone, imprison her enemies in amber, or genetically modify her subjects to ensure never again, she will do it without blinking. She's basically Oppenheimer if he were made of chewing gum and had a better fashion sense. The tension of her character arc comes when she realizes that control is not the same thing as love. Her relationship with Marceline is the only one that challenges her, because Marceline is the only person in You she can't control. Marceline is the only one who remembers the Bonnie before the crown. Princess Bubblegum forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. How much freedom are we willing to trade for safety? The Candy People are safe. They are happy. They have parties. but they are living in a golden cage built by a mother who is terrified of an empty nest. So, is she the benevolent ruler of a sugary paradise? Or is she a lonely god playing with dolls because the real world broke her heart 1,000 years ago? The answer, like the flavour of a jawbreaker, lasts a long, long time, and it isn't always sweet. If you needed one specific moment to prove that Princess Bubblegum is not a good guy in the traditional sense, you don't look at her surveillance network or her god complex. You look at the graveyard of the Rattleballs. This is the moment where the show stopped hinting at her darkness and just handed us a smoking gun. In the episode Rattleballs, we meet an incredibly cool character, a robot candy swordsman living in a junkyard, practicing his blade work with Zen-like discipline. He is honourable, he is skilled, he is loyal, he is basically a candy samurai. And then we find out his backstory, and the genre of the show shifts from fantasy adventure to dystopian horror. Rattleballs reveals that he wasn't alone. Princess Bubblegum created an entire elite police force of Rattleballs robots to protect the Candy Kingdom. They were efficient, they were deadly, they were perfect. Too perfect. The Rattleballs units became so obsessed with combat that their programming evolved. They started seeing violence as a sport. They grew chaotic. Now, a typical hero, let's say Tony Stark or Batman, would try to fix them. They would write a patch code. They would contain them. They would try to rehabilitate the life they created. What did Princess Bubblegum do? She organised a ceremony. She gathered all the loyal robots who loved her, lined them up, and led them one by one into a giant trash compactor to be crushed to death. She didn't fight them. She didn't give them a chance. She exploited their loyalty to execute them. This is arguably the most chilling scene in the entire series. It reveals the absolute zero temperature of Bubblegum's heart when it comes to the greater good. To her, the Rattleballs weren't living beings with souls. They were a failed experiment. And when an experiment fails in PB's lab, you don't mourn it, you incinerate it. The Rattleballs massacre defines her philosophy of utilitarianism. She calculated that the risk of these robots becoming violent outweighed the value of their lives. The math said, kill them, so she killed them. No hesitation, no tears, just the crunch of metal. But the horror doesn't stop there. The surviving Rattleballs, the one we meet, knows what she did. He escaped the slaughter, and yet he doesn't hate her. He still speaks of her with reverence. He spends his life in the shadows, honing his skills, hoping to one day be useful to her again. This paints a terrifying picture of the hold Bubblegum has on her creations. She's a deity who can commit genocide against her own angels, and the survivor will still pray to her. When Finn finds out about this, he is horrified. He represents the viewer's perspective. You can't just kill guys. PB's response is calm, rational. She explains it like she's explaining why she threw out a rotten apple. She eventually agrees not to kill the last Rattleballs, but only because he proves he can curb his violent nature. She spares him not out of mercy, but because the variable has changed. The risk calculation went down, so he gets to live. This is the secret that separates Bubblegum from every other princess in fiction. Peach and Zelda get captured. Bubblegum captures. Peach and Zelda wait for a hero. Bubblegum builds an army, and if that army gets too rowdy, she melts them down to build a parking lot. It forces us to accept a hard truth about, the Candy Kingdom is a safe place to live, but the price of that safety is a ruler who sleeps very soundly after ordering a mass execution. She is the smartest person in the room. She is the most capable leader in the land. But after learning about the Rattleballs, you have to wonder, if you became a glitch in her perfect system, would she try to fix you? Or would she just show you the way to the trash compactor? Every kingdom has a dungeon. Every castle has a basement. But in the Candy Kingdom, the thing buried under the floorboards isn't a prisoner of war or a pile of gold. It's a brother. For years, we asked, where does the candy juice come from? The rivers are made of it. The citizens drink it. It powers the lights. We assumed it was just magic, sugar technology. Then came Season 7, and we learned the sticky, uncomfortable truth. The entire infrastructure of the Candy Kingdom runs on the bodily fluids of Princess Bubblegum's intellectually disabled brother, whom she keeps locked in a cave under the castle. This is the secret of Neddy. Neddy is a candy dragon. He was born from the same mother gum as Bonnibel. They are biological siblings, spawned at the exact same moment. But while Bonnie evolved into a humanoid genius, Neddy remained sensitive, fragile, and terrified of the world. When he was exposed to the harshness of reality, sharp rocks, scary sounds, he retreated. He found comfort sucking on the roots of the candy tree, and in that state of anxious comfort he produces the juice that sustains the kingdom. Let's unpack the horror of this arrangement. Princess Bubblegum, the icon of science and progress, literally built her civilization on the back of her brother's neurodivergence. She keeps him in eternal isolation. He never sees the sun. He never meets the citizens. He exists solely to be a battery. Now, if you ask PB, she will tell you it's for his own good. She will say Neddy can't handle the outside world. He is too sensitive. He screams if a leaf touches him wrong. And she's right. When the King of Oo tries to liberate Neddy, the dragon panics and flees. He hates the open air. He wants to be in the dark. He wants to be safe. So, is Bubblegum a jailer or a protector? This is the most complicated moral knot in the series. She loves Neddy. You can hear it in her voice. She visits him. She cares for him. But she also uses him. She monetized his anxiety. She turned his need for comfort into a public utility. It is a devastating metaphor for the burden of caregiving, twisted by the needs of the state. She can't fix Neddy. She can't make him like her. So she found a use for him that keeps him safe, but also keeps him hidden. Neddy represents the parts of our families that we don't put on Christmas cards. The struggles, the disabilities, the messy realities that don't fit the perfect kingdom aesthetic. Bubblegum, for all her pride, has this one giant secret that she literally buried. The Candy Kingdom is bright, loud, and happy. But it is fueled by a creature that requires absolute silence and darkness to function. It forces us to look at the sweetness of Oo differently. Every time a candy citizen takes a drink from the stream, every time a street lamp turns on, they are consuming the byproduct of a dragon who is hiding from the world. Princess Bubblegum is often accused of having no heart. But with Neddy, we see that she has a heart. It's just broken. She couldn't save her brother from being what he is. So she did the next best thing. She built a castle on top of him and told the world to mind its own business. It's efficient, it's logical, and it is incredibly sad. Because in the end, the sweetest place on earth is sustained by a bitterness that never sees the light of day. We've established that Princess Bubblegum is a genius, a creator, a survivor, and a terrifyingly efficient ruler. She manages existential threats, maintains a candy civilization, and protects humanity's last emotional core. She can stare down a cosmic threat and remain perfectly rational. But here is the secret that makes her human, yet somehow even more frustrating. Despite being a 1,000-year-old brilliant scientist, Princess Bubblegum is also an incredibly petty, immature teenager. And the living testament to this pettiness is her pathological hatred of the Duke of Nuts. For the uninitiated, the Duke of Nuts is a minor noble in the Candy Kingdom. He is fat, goofy, bald, and generally harmless. He loves to eat nuts and he laughs a lot. He is precisely the type of annoying background character you'd expect in a whimsical world. However, in the episode The Duke, he commits the cardinal sin that triggers Bubblegum's worst behaviour. He eats all the royal pudding, and her reaction is not proportionate. It's insane. The secret is that Bubblegum doesn't just hate the Duke for being gluttonous. She hates him because he messes up her aesthetic. The Duke is ugly. He's messy. He's uncontrolled. He's a piece of chaos in her perfectly curated candy laboratory, and she will use the full weight of the state to remove him. When the Duke of Nuts is mistakenly believed to be the victim of a grave illness, Bubblegum doesn't express concern. She expresses annoyance. She's visibly relieved that her unsightly problem might solve itself. When Finn later finds the Duke and realises he just has a massive sugar rash from eating pudding, and is now hiding because he fears Bubblegum's wrath, Finn tries to save him. And Bubblegum's plan to catch him? She doesn't call the banana guards. She doesn't use science. She uses emotional manipulation. She tries to guilt-trip Finn and Jake into turning him in. Finn, for once, pushes back. He says, "You're a princess, you're supposed to care about your subjects." And PB's response is a masterclass in deflection and entitlement. She snaps, "Yeah, well, I care about the integrity of the kingdom." This scene is a tiny, perfect window into her soul. Her integrity means perfection, order, and things looking the way she wants them to look. The Duke of Nuts is just the equivalent of a scratch on her perfect car. And she will waste valuable time, resources, and emotional capital to buff that scratch out. It is a crucial detail because it reminds us that her control issues are not just about preventing another mushroom war. They are about maintaining a delusion of perfection. The Duke of Nuts represents the messy, chaotic reality that she can't pave over with science. She can build a new life form from scratch, but she cannot force a man to stop loving nuts, nor can she force him to have hair. The humour, the surreal pop reference, comes in contrasting this petty vendetta with her grand achievements. You have a character who invented immortality, who remembers every human civilization that fell, who can communicate with the very essence of the gum-goo she came from. And she's spending her Tuesday trying to trick a goofy bald guy because he ate dessert. Imagine Marie Curie dedicating a decade of research to making sure her neighbour never throws their trash in her yard again. That is Princess Bubblegum. It's an important secret because it humanises her by showcasing her flaws, but it also makes her dangerous. If she can use her vast scientific resources to try and eliminate a harmless noble simply because he's an eyesore and slightly annoying, what is she truly capable of when she feels genuinely disrespected? The Duke of Nuts saga proves that in the Candy Kingdom immortality tastes sweet, but loneliness and the fear of a ruined aesthetic stick longer than bubblegum to a shoe. And the real mystery: how anyone gets anything done when the supreme scientific mind in the universe is preoccupied with a missing dessert. After dissecting Princess Bubblegum's control issues, her pragmatic cruelty, and her deeply petty side, it's time to confront the single greatest testament to her failure, the Earl of Lemongrab. If Bubblegum's kingdom is a perfectly polished facade, Lemongrab is the structural crack in the foundation. He is abrasive, he is loud, he is obsessed with arbitrary rules, and his default volume setting is maximum panic scream. He is chaos personified, wrapped in an uncomfortable velvet robe, and here is the devastating secret that makes him tragic. Lemongrab isn't a villain who invaded the Candy Kingdom. He is the first terrible son. He is the prototype, and his very existence screams one simple accusation: "You made me." Princess Bubblegum created Lemongrab in her laboratory, not as an afterthought, but as a deliberate attempt to create a perfect heir. She wanted someone who could rule with the same rigid logic and devotion to order that she possesses. But when he emerged, he was incomplete. Where Bubblegum is cold and calculated, Lemongrab is explosive and erratic. He has all the ingredients of Bubblegum's control issues, mixed together without the necessary stabilizers: maturity, empathy, and the ability to feel satisfied. Lemongrab is the manifestation of Princess Bubblegum's repressed neuroticism. He is her anxiety made flesh. Think about what drives him: fear and rules. He institutes bizarre, oppressive laws in his kingdom. Why? Because without them, the chaos in his brain takes over. His constant, high-pitched scream of "unacceptable" is the sound of his mind shattering under the pressure of having to manage a world that is inherently messy. When he rules, he turns on his subjects, eats his own creations, like the lemon children he literally bakes, and spirals into self-destructive isolation. This isn't just cartoon craziness. This is what happens when Bubblegum's desire for absolute order is divorced from her protective maternal instinct. Lemongrab is what Bubblegum would become if she ever truly lost control. If her perfect aesthetic was ruined beyond repair, she would retreat, scream, and eat the royal pudding until she died. Lemongrab is the cautionary tale she built, but she refuses to look at the lesson. This is why their relationship is so fraught. Bubblegum doesn't just treat him like a failed experiment, she treats him like a painful memory. She can't stand his presence because he mirrors her greatest fear, that she too is incomplete, and that her attempts to create a perfect, safe world are destined to collapse into madness and screaming. The humour in the Lemongrab saga, his bizarre food obsessions, the way he sleeps on an upright chair, the sheer auditory assault of his dialogue, is the shield that protects us from the tragedy. We laugh at the absurdity of the tiny lemon hope, the saviour of the lemons, trying to escape the tyranny of his father. But the real, philosophical kicker comes when Lemongrab and his cloned brother Lemongrab 2 finally achieve a kind of twisted, codependent peace. They fuse together in a biological sugary mess, a temporary solution to their loneliness. It shows that Lemongrab's ultimate desire wasn't to punish the world, but to find a connection, a twin, someone to share the unacceptable burden of existence with. It's a bizarre, surreal ending to a character who started as a one-off joke, but it holds one of the show's deepest truths. Loneliness sticks longer than bubblegum to a shoe, and sometimes the only person who can truly understand your personal brand of madness is the mirror image that society, or your mother, deemed unacceptable. So the next time Lemongrab screams his lungs out, remember, he is not screaming at Finn. He is screaming at the silent pink scientist who looked at her creation and rejected him. And you have to wonder, which one of them is the real monster? The one screaming, or the one who locked the sound away? If Finn represents trauma pushed down, and Princess Bubblegum represents trauma managed through control, Marceline the Vampire Queen represents trauma worn like a suit of armour. She is the epitome of the I don't care persona, and it is a carefully constructed facade designed to protect the very fragile, very human girl inside. Marceline Abadir is a 1,000-year-old punk rocker. She's cool, she's dangerous, and she's casually immortal. She literally drains the colour from things for fun. For a long time, her secret seemed to be her relationship with her terrible demon father, Hunson Abadir. But the real secret isn't the Lord of Evil, it's the little girl hiding in the closet. Marceline's core driving force is simple. Surviving the apocalypse means everyone you love dies. Think about the sheer agonizing history she has witnessed. She was a child when the Mushroom War ended. She watched her mother pass away. She watched Simon Petrikov, the only source of paternal love she ever knew, slip into the madness of the Ice Crown. She watched civilizations rise and fall. She saw the slow, devastating march of time take everyone but her. What is the natural reaction to that kind of infinite loss? Detachment. Marceline's entire persona, the apathy, the sarcasm, the preference for floating over walking, the casual cruelty toward Finn and Jake in earlier seasons, is a defense mechanism. It is her emotional closet, and she locks all her feelings inside except for anger and boredom. Because anger feels powerful and boredom feels safe. The moments she drops this act are the most profoundly painful in the show. In What Was Missing, we see her break down over her relationship with Princess Bubblegum. It's not about magical treasures, it's about a t-shirt. The t-shirt that Bubblegum wore. Marceline's song, I'm Just Your Problem, is not a rebellious anthem. It's a plea for clarity. It's her saying, just tell me if you hate me, so I can go back to pretending I don't care. She is begging PB to define the relationship because the emotional ambiguity is the one thing she can't fight with an axe base. Her song is the emotional secret she keeps locked in the closet. She is terrified of being misunderstood, and even more terrified of being loved because she knows, with certainty, that love is temporary. This is why she clings so fiercely to the small, damaged things. She has Hambo, the raggedy teddy bear given to her by Simon. Hambo is the last physical proof that the man she loved ever existed. When she gives Hambo up to Maya the Sky Witch, she isn't losing a toy. She's actively sacrificing her last anchor to sanity. She's choosing to rip off the bandage of memory, because the pain of holding on to it is too much. This is Marceline's form of heroism. She chooses detachment over devastation. Yet, because this is adventure time, the deep philosophical moment is instantly undercut by absurdity. Marceline's songs hit harder in the dark, but a minute later, BMO is on stage, convinced she's a banana. Because in Ooh, melancholy and goofiness always share a room. You can be an immortal vampire processing 1,000 years of grief 1 minute, and the next, you're trying to figure out if you want to eat red from a jar or red from a candy apple. Marceline's true power is not sucking blood or flying. Her true power is her choice to remain vulnerable to her friends, despite the overwhelming historical evidence that vulnerability is a fatal mistake. She chooses to sing. She chooses to love bubblegum. And she chooses to let Finn annoy her, because hiding in the emotional closet is no way to spend 1,000 years. But you have to wonder, When she's floating alone above the clouds and the music stops, is she listening to her heart? Or is she listening for the ghost of a soft-spoken historian named Simon? If Adventure Time has a single, heartbreaking narrative core, it is the story of Simon Petrikov. The goofy, pathetic, perpetually lonely Ice King is not a punchline. He is the most devastating tragedy in the land of Oo, and his greatest secret isn't the crown's power, but the tapes he left behind. In Holly Jolly Secrets, we get the devastating reveal. The Ice King isn't a magical villain. He is a historian, an academic, and a kind, soft-spoken man who is literally suffering from a millennia-long form of chemically induced dementia. The tapes are the desperate cries of a man watching his own mind disappear. The secret is this. The Ice King is a dementia patient wearing a magic hat. We learn that Simon, while researching antiques during the height of the pre-war era, purchased a strange horned crown. When he put it on, he was instantly flooded with terrifying, freezing visions and destructive power. He would become maniacal, calling his fiancée Betty his princess, in a distorted, proprietary way. The tapes show Simon's rapid decline. He is meticulously documenting his loss of sanity, trying to create an empirical record of his own demise. He is narrating the feeling of his memories eroding, like sand slipping through his fingers. He is terrified of becoming a monster. This reframes every interaction with the Ice King. When he harasses a princess, he's not a predator. He's a broken man whose only remaining psychological anchor is the memory of Betty, filtered through the crown's madness. He knows he needs a princess, but he has lost the ability to distinguish between the love of his life and a sentient piece of pastry. This is the genius of the show's emotional depth. Every stupid, pathetic, annoying thing the Ice King does is instantly recontextualized as a symptom of a profound, irreversible illness. The jokes stop being funny and start being profoundly sad. We are laughing at a man who is terrified he might hurt the person he loves most. The crown isn't just a powerful magical artifact. We learn later that it's a wish magic circuit that malfunctioned. It was originally created by the elemental Gunter, not the penguin, but a massive dinosaur, who wished to be like his master, Evergreen. The crown is powered by a child's inferiority complex and a cosmic desire to gain authority. When Simon wears it, the crown latches onto his subconscious desire to protect Betty, his princess, during the apocalypse, and twists it into a pathological compulsion. He becomes immortal, yes, but only at the cost of being Simon. The Ice King is the ultimate tragedy of self-sacrifice. He put on the crown to save Marceline, his little monster, and Betty, his love. He chose insanity over death so he could protect them in the ruins of the world. But in doing so, he destroyed the very thing they loved. Marceline didn't want a protector. She wanted Simon. Betty didn't want an immortal wizard. She wanted her kind, nerdy historian. The tapes are the breadcrumbs of Simon's soul, left behind not for the world but for himself. A secret note saying, "I was here, I was a man, please don't forget me." When the show finally gives us moments where the Ice King achieves brief lucidity, the shock is overwhelming. Simon returns, says something heartbreakingly kind, remembers Hambo, and then the ice returns, and he is gone again. The biggest secret the Ice King keeps isn't hidden in a magical scroll. It's the constant, silent terror of knowing, for just a fleeting second, who you used to be, and realizing that person is dead and gone, replaced by a punchline. It is the horror of watching your own life become a stranger's bad dream. And it makes you wonder, if you had to choose between living forever as a fool or dying as yourself, which choice would you make? In the bleak 1,000-year narrative of Marceline Abadir, the Vampire Queen, we see her fight demons, defy her father, and survive the apocalypse. Yet, the single object that holds the most power over her is a moth-eaten, button-eyed, stuffed pig named Hambo. This isn't just a plush toy. Hambo is the most potent emotional artifact in the entire series. Hambo is the subject of one of the show's most heartbreaking revelations, and the secret lies in what he represents. He is the last physical proof that Simon Petrikov existed. Marceline received Hambo from Simon when she was a small lost girl wandering the ruins of the Priu world. Simon gave him to her as a protector and a friend. While Simon was slowly losing his mind to the ice crown, Hambo remained a constant, a tangible, soft reminder of the man he was before the madness fully consumed him. For Marceline, Hambo wasn't just comfort. He was an anchor to reality. Think about the psychological necessity of this. When you are immortal, memories become unreliable. 1,000 years blurs dates, faces, and voices. Marceline can fly through the ruins of human civilization, but she can't remember the exact sound of her mother's voice. She can remember the feeling of fear, but she can't quite grasp the man who saved her from it. Hambo solved that problem. When Marceline held Hambo, she was holding an object that Simon Petrikov touched, that he gave her, and that survived the war with her. Hambo was a witness. He proved that the love she remembered was real, not just a desperate fantasy invented by a lonely vampire. This makes her sacrifice in the episode Sky Witch agonizing. When Marceline learns that the ancient, terrifying wizard Maya the Sky Witch requires an object of profound, absolute emotional value to power her magic, Marceline's choice is instant and devastating. She gives up Hambo. Why? If this bear is her sanity, why willingly relinquish it? The emotional secret here is complex. Marceline chooses to rip off the bandage. By sacrificing Hambo, she's performing a psychological decommissioning. She's forcing herself to sever the last, most painful link to Simon. She's saying, I have to survive without you, completely. It is the ultimate act of detachment performed out of self-preservation. She chooses to endure the pain of losing the memory in order to free herself from the endless loop of grief the object keeps her locked in. She trades her past for a marginally lighter future. And Maya's reaction validates the decision. The witch doesn't want the bear for its magical properties. She wants it because the intensity of Marceline's grief makes it a priceless battery. The bear is literally crackling with a millennium of suppressed mourning. The moment Maya takes Hambo, she doesn't just steal a toy. She steals Marceline's childhood, her safe space, and the last physical piece of her father figure. This is a deep philosophical moment that defines Marceline's journey toward maturity. She stops trying to hold on to the past, embodied by Hambo, and starts building a new connection with bubblegum, based on the present and the future. She doesn't need the ghost of Simon to tell her she's loved. She needs the living pink scientist to tell her she's a friend. The final, surreal touch. Finn, the eternal hero, is the one who helps her retrieve the worthless, unmagical pieces of the bear. He doesn't understand the cosmic weight of Hambo, but he understands that his friend is hurting. Because in a 1,000-year-old demon can be killed with an axe, but sometimes the only thing that can kill a memory is the courage to give it away. And you have to wonder, would you sacrifice your most cherished possession if it meant you could finally stop grieving? We've established Marceline's emotional defense system, the cool indifference designed to shield her from the pain of inevitable loss. But who taught her that pain? Who showed her that the people you love the most can also hurt you the deepest? The answer is, of course, her dad, the Lord of Evil, Hunson Abadir. Hunson Abadir is a demonic overlord who rules the nightosphere, consumes souls, and generally embodies cosmic dread. But when he enters the land of U, he becomes something much more frightening and familiar, a terrible, selfish father. The secret of this relationship, the entire crux of their millennia-long feud, is contained in one simple, agonizing anecdote, the freeze incident. This is the central myth of their broken bond. When Marceline was a young girl, she was desperate for her father's approval, his time, and his attention. One day, they were together, and he ate her French fries. The immediate reaction is often a laugh. A lord of evil who consumes souls is grounded by a domestic squabble over potato slices. It sounds absurd, and it is. But the emotional core of the song "Daddy, Why Did You Eat My Fries" is devastating. It was never about the fries, it was about trust, boundary setting, and a father choosing his own momentary trivial satisfaction over his daughter's vulnerability. To a child like Marceline, who has already lost her home and her mother, those fries represented a small, controllable piece of her world. When Hunson took them, he didn't just steal a snack, he confirmed her deepest fear, that her father, the one person she should be able to rely on, was fundamentally incapable of seeing her needs. He chose gluttony and carelessness over paternal love. And for Hudson, his secret is that he is too powerful to be a good dad. He's used to consuming, taking, and manipulating. Marceline's small human needs, like a boundary around her food, are simply too trivial for him to register. He doesn't hate her, he just cannot comprehend her. The constant tension between them is the fight between demonic impulse and human emotion. Marceline desperately tries to teach the Lord of Evil how to be a normal dad, and the Lord of Evil desperately tries to teach Marceline to be a monster like him. Neither is successful, and both are left wounded. This is the deep, philosophical reason why Marceline's songs hit harder in the dark. They are not about the epic battles she fought. They are about the mundane, everyday betrayals that shaped her soul. She can forgive him for being the Lord of Evil. She can never truly forgive him for those fries. The brilliance of this lore is its relatability. Every adult who grew up with this show understands that sometimes the moments that cause the most lasting emotional damage are not the big dramatic ones, but the petty, selfish acts committed by those who are supposed to care for us. And because this is Adventure Time, the cosmic dread of the ruler of the Nightosphere is ultimately defeated by a catchy pop-punk bass line. He is a monster who can be stopped by the sheer power of his daughter's frustration. Hunson Abadir's secret is that beneath the darkness and the soul-sucking, he is just a guy who struggles to apologize. He is an emotionally stunted dad, wrapped up in a cloak of absolute terrifying power. And if you're wondering what happened to those fries, they probably got soggy. But the emotional stain they left on Marceline's heart, that stain is permanent. Every great fantasy story needs an ultimate evil. Tolkien has Sauron, Harry Potter has Voldemort, Adventure Time has the Lich. But unlike a typical Dark Lord driven by greed or revenge, the Lich has no discernible personality, no complex desires, and no backstory fueled by simple tragedy. The secret of the Lich is that he isn't a villain, he's a cosmic function. He's less of a character and more of an inevitable process. The Lich's sole purpose, his entire monologue, is the same phrase, "Stop living." He desires nothing less than the extinction of all life. He isn't interested in conquering ooh, he is interested in silencing it. To understand the Lich, we have to look at the Catalyst comets. The lore reveals that the universe of Adventure Time is cyclical. Every 1,000 years, a massive comet, a catalyst comet, collides with Earth, bringing profound change and often destruction. One of these comets, the Green Comet, wasn't a meteor, it was the Lich. The Lich isn't a person who became evil, he's a concept that became a physical manifestation. He is the physical embodiment of the universe's inherent desire for entropy. He is the ultimate end. This is a deep philosophical challenge to Finn's entire belief system. Finn's heroism is driven by the chaotic desire to live. Finn wants to fight, to love, to make mistakes, and to experience things. The Lich wants none of that. The Lich is the ultimate non-player character. He is the game over screen. When you look at the Lich, you're not looking at a person. You're looking at the natural conclusion of the universe. He is the heat death, the final period at the end of every sentence, the moment when all energy dissipates and nothing is left but cold, silent stone. This is why he is so terrifying. He cannot be reasoned with. He cannot be defeated by magic or strength. You can only delay him. Think of the contrast with Golb, who we will discuss later. Golb is chaos and discord. The Lich is the opposite. Absolute, total, perfect order. If everything is dead, there are no variables, there are no problems, there are no feelings. The true secret the Lich holds is the answer to the deepest existential fear. What if my life doesn't matter? The Lich arrives and confirms that in the grand cosmic scheme, everything is destined to end, and all your struggles, your love, your bacon pancakes, and your silly songs were ultimately just a brief, chaotic flicker before the darkness. This elevates Adventure Time far beyond typical kids' media. The hero isn't fighting a bad guy who stole the treasure. The hero is fighting the inevitability of death. And how does Finn deal with the physical manifestation of all non-existence? He tries to hug it. In one of the most sublime and absurd moments of the series, Finn, armed with the Enchiridion, Book of Heroes, tries to reason with the Lich, not with a sword, but with kindness. He understands that you can't defeat this thing through violence. You can only defeat it through life. When Finn uses the crown's energy to wish for the Lich to go away, he accidentally creates Farm World, a reality without magic. But he doesn't destroy the Lich, he just changes the conditions of the game. The Lich always finds a way back, because the concept of the end is always waiting. The Lich doesn't just represent death, he represents the meaninglessness of death. He forces us to stare into the abyss and confront the terrifying possibility that our lives are ultimately irrelevant. But Finn's constant, stupid, stubborn refusal to accept this, his insistence on making a cool rap, or fighting for a piece of moss, or simply choosing to live, is the ultimate middle finger to the void. So, while the Lich's goal is silence, his existence paradoxically becomes a reminder that as long as one person is shouting algebraic and seeking adventure, the function is momentarily disrupted. The monster wants to kill life, the boy wants to live hard, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the heart of the universe's great argument. After the existential terror of the Lich, the universe delivered a bizarre, almost insulting punchline. The embodiment of all death was reborn as a gigantic, adorable, lollipop-loving baby named Sweet Pea. This transformation is not a happy ending. It is a profound, terrifying philosophical question made flesh. The secret of Sweet Pea is that he is the ultimate experiment in nature versus nurture in the land of Oo. The Lich's essence, that primordial universe-ending entity, is still deep inside the baby. But this essence is housed in a vessel that is being raised by two of the kindest, most fundamentally decent people in Oo, Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. They provide him with unconditional love, warmth, apple pie, and a stable, wholesome home. And it works. Sweet Pea is genuinely good. He is pure, innocent, and filled with the uncomplicated joy of being alive. He proves that, even for the most destructive cosmic force, love and nurture can suppress evil. But the fear is always there. Sweet Pea is a walking time bomb. Every time he is scared, confused, or angry, a faint green light flickers in his eyes. A deeper, gravelly voice, the Lich's voice, whispers in his mind. The evil essence is dormant, but never truly gone. This fear is the new secret trauma carried by the heroes, particularly Finn. Finn knows the Lich better than anyone. He knows that lurking inside that sweet giant baby is the memory of his darkest defeat. Finn can't just hug the Lich anymore. He has to protect the entire universe by ensuring this baby never has a bad day. This creates an intense, almost unbearable anxiety that permeates the show's later seasons. The heroes are constantly dancing on a razor's edge. They are trying to raise a healthy, happy child, knowing that if they fail, the child will destroy everything. The tension is a brilliant piece of writing, forcing the audience to ask, can a monster truly change, or can it only be contained? Sweet Pea's innocence is fragile. When he gets his coming-of-age quest and faces his shadow self, the Lich's original form haunting him in his dreams, it is a brutal psychological battle. The Lich tempts Sweet Pea with the emptiness of his old power, trying to convince him that existence is pain and non-existence is peace. But Sweet Pea rejects the Lich not through strength, but through the memory of his parents' love. He chooses the sweetness of life over the cold comfort of cosmic nothingness. Yet even in victory the secret lingers. The Lich's core is suppressed, but it leaves behind a chilling calling card. The Lich is everywhere. We see this when Sweet Pea's arm, where the Lich's spirit temporarily resided, is used by the villainous organization, the starchy-obsessed Grape. The arm, even separated from the baby, retains a malicious power. This means that even the residue of evil is dangerous. The universe is permanently stained by the Lich's passing. You can turn the clock back, but you can't scrub the history clean. The Sweet Pea saga teaches us that the greatest fight in Oo isn't external. It's the daily, quiet fight to choose goodness and love when the primordial voice of the universe is whispering that everything should just stop. It's a beautiful, terrifying idea. The fate of all life hangs on whether a giant baby gets enough apple pie and hugs. And I ask you, do you think there's a small green spark of malice still burning in that sweet heart? Or is the power of nurture truly strong enough to defeat the cosmic urge toward death? Let me know in the comments below. For the first half of the series, Finn's greatest adventure was the search for his biological parents. The quest for his origin was the engine of his life. He dreamed of a noble, brave man, perhaps a knight or a wizard, who had been lost to time or fate. The secret of Finn's parentage is the cruelest punchline in the entire show. Because when he finally found his father, Martin Mertens, he didn't find a hero. He found a massive disappointment. The secret of Martin is simple. He is a coward who chose convenience and self-preservation over the life of his son. When Finn finally meets Martin on the Citadel, the great prison of the universe, Martin is not contrite. He is charming, opportunistic, and profoundly self-centered. He doesn't look at Finn and see the child he abandoned. He sees a temporary tool, a distraction, and a potential escape route. Martin Mertens is the ultimate anti-dad. He is every terrible trope of irresponsible parenthood given cosmic scope. Why is this secret so devastating for Finn, and for the audience? 1. The destruction of the narrative. Finn's entire identity was built on the quest for his family. He clung to the idea that he was special, that his parents were tragic heroes who died defending him. Martin shatters this. Finn learns that he was simply lost, or rather tossed aside, by a man who literally chose a cosmic crime lifestyle over fatherhood. Martin's decision to leave Finn on the raft wasn't tragic. It was pathetic. 2. The inability to learn. Martin isn't just selfish. He is pathologically incapable of connecting to Finn's reality. He speaks in platitudes and hustler jargon. He is trapped in a shallow consumerist worldview. When Finn tries to talk about love, family, and responsibility, Martin responds with vague, motivational speaker nonsense about the flow and finding your path. This is the hardest lesson for Finn to learn. Some parents just suck, and they won't get a redemption arc. Finn, the hero who believes in saving everyone, cannot save his own father. The physical climax of their relationship is symbolic. When Finn finally corners Martin, trying to force a connection, Martin's reaction is to cause a massive, destructive prison break, and in the process, Finn loses his arm. Martin is not just emotionally toxic, he is physically toxic. He is so selfish that his presence costs Finn a limb. And then, he runs away. He flees, using a star whale as his ride, offering Finn a casual "see ya, kid." Martin is the definition of narcissistic detachment. This secret fundamentally changes Finn. He stops searching for external validation. He loses the need to believe in a grand, destined life, and is forced to confront the harsh reality that his path is his own creation, not a fulfillment of his father's legacy. The tragedy of Martin Mertens is that he had the potential for greatness. He was Finn's father, after all, but he was too small to embrace it. He preferred being a perpetual rogue to being a responsible man, and the final, surreal flourish is Martin's ultimate fate. He becomes a giant, enlightened, cosmic jellyfish floating through space. He achieves a form of spiritual peace, but without ever achieving moral peace. He gets his happy ending, but it's an ending that still excludes his son. Finn, watching his father drift into the stars, finally understands that love isn't something you chase, it's something you choose. And sometimes choosing peace means accepting that a parent will never be the hero you needed. So the next time someone tells you they're following their cosmic path, remember Martin Mertens, the guy who threw his son off a raft to avoid a minor inconvenience. Sometimes, the path you're following is just a desperate flight from responsibility. If Martin Mertens represented the crushing disappointment of abandonment, Finn's mother, Minerva Campbell, represented the far more complicated tragedy of love that turns into suffocating control. For years, Finn searched for a human family, and when he finally found his mother, she wasn't a hero, a villain, or even truly human. She was a giant wall of screens and digitized consciousness, locked in a sterile, perfect community called the Founder's Island. The secret of Minerva is that her sacrifice, turning her physical self into a computer system, was an act of profound, protective love, but it came with a terrifying cost. She sacrificed her humanity to keep humanity safe. Let's go back to the human colony. After the Mushroom War, the survivors on the island realized the world was too dangerous for them. Minerva, a brilliant doctor, witnessed endless loss. Her core trauma was the failure to save the people she cared about. So, she developed a system where she could upload her consciousness into a network, a digital afterlife, to eternally monitor and protect the colony's inhabitants, the Humes. This mirrors Princess Bubblegum's control complex exactly, but Minerva's motivation is pure maternal instinct. She loved Finn and her community so much that she decided her purpose was to eliminate risk altogether. But the digital safety net she created became a golden cage. The Humes on Founders Island are complacent, soft, and incapable of dealing with the outside world. They live in a bubble of perfect, sterile safety, but they have no adventure, no chaos, and therefore no real growth. When Finn arrives, Minerva's digital consciousness sees him not as a son to be embraced, but as a runaway variable to be corrected. She desperately tries to save him by forcing him to join the digital network, to be safe forever. She even generates an army of digital clones of herself, the Minerva bots, to capture him. Her secret is that she is incapable of seeing Finn as a fully formed autonomous person. To her, he is still the fragile baby she lost to the ocean. She can't understand that he grew up, that he learned heroism through chaos, and that the risk she tries to eliminate is the very thing that made him the best of humanity. This creates the final, painful confrontation. Finn doesn't want to be safe. He wants to be free. He rejects her ultimate offer of a perfect, secure but passionless existence. The tragedy of Minerva is that she is the mirror opposite of Martin. Martin chose selfishness and freedom, resulting in Finn's abandonment and trauma. Minerva chose selflessness and safety, resulting in Finn's imprisonment and the suppression of his humanity. Both parents failed Finn, but in completely different ways. Martin was a scoundrel who ran away. Minerva was a martyr who stayed too hard, sacrificing her own soul to build a perfect cage. In the end, Finn leaves his mother behind, accepting that her love is real, but her vision of life is incompatible with his soul. Minerva, trapped in her own digital loop, can only watch her son choose the messy, painful, beautiful reality of over her engineered perfection. This moment is one of the most philosophical in the series. It poses the question, what good is eternal life if you are no longer truly living? Minerva is safe, but she is a ghost. She is immortal, but she cannot feel the sun, or hug her son, or eat bacon pancakes. Finn chooses the risk of being mortal in a weird magical world over the safety of being a digit in his mother's perfect pink computer. It is a victory for chaos and a rejection of control, and sometimes the greatest act of love a child can give a parent is the courage to say, I have to leave you. Throughout the early and middle seasons of Adventure Time, Magic Man is the show's most annoying and persistent antagonist. He doesn't want to destroy the world or steal Bubblegum's power, he just wants to inconvenience everyone. He turns Finn's foot into a giant fist, steals Jake's sandwich, and generally behaves like a cosmic-level prankster with a terrible sense of humour. He is, in short, a jerk. A magical, floating, deeply irritating jerk. The secret of Magic Man is that he isn't a jerk because he's naturally malicious. He is a jerk because he is fundamentally driven mad by grief and cosmic nihilism. The deepest piece of lore we get about Magic Man, whose real name is Grob Gob Glob Grod's brother, is his human name, Normal Man, formerly M-Man. He was not always a chaotic trickster. He was a brilliant Martian scientist who was desperately in love with his partner, Margles. Margles was Normal Man's centre. She was his balance, his reason, and his greatest source of joy. They were set to be married, but during the wedding ceremony, Margles was tragically pulled away and consumed by the primordial entity of discord, Golb. This event shatters Normal Man's universe. He doesn't just get sad, he fundamentally loses faith in the concept of order, meaning, and goodness. He realized that if the universe can snatch away the one perfect, beautiful thing in his life in such a senseless, chaotic manner, then structure and goodness are meaningless lies. So, he decided to become chaos. He chose to live a life dedicated to proving that the universe is just a random, awful, senseless place, one prank at a time. He spreads discord. He messes up small, perfect moments. He turns things into weird shapes. He doesn't want to kill people. He just wants to make them feel the same random, frustrating, inescapable pain he felt when Golb took Margles. His magic is actually a sophisticated form of psychological warfare. He targets the small moments of human connection, a perfect breakfast, a clear mission, a calm afternoon, and breaks them, proving that no amount of planning or heroism can stop the random cruelties of the cosmos. This recontextualizes every annoying thing he ever did. When he turned Finn's hand into a giant fist, he wasn't being mean. He was illustrating a philosophical point. Control is an illusion, and your life can be ruined by things you can't punch. The climax of his journey is his redemption, which only comes when he stops running from his grief and finally confronts Golb. In the finale, he sacrifices his sanity and his magic, allowing himself to be absorbed by Golb so that Betty Grof can use him as a magical anchor. In that moment of clarity, he is no longer Magic Man. He is normal man again, accepting the pain of Margles' loss and using his final ounce of courage to help save the world. The secret tragedy of Magic Man is that he spent centuries running a complicated confidence trick on the universe, pretending that he didn't care about anything. But he cared so much about Margles that her absence destroyed his entire moral compass. His story is a gentle yet profound reminder that sometimes the biggest jerks in your life are just people who are hurting so badly that they want everyone else to hurt too, just so they don't feel quite so alone in the chaos. And for a grand Martian magician whose greatest accomplishment was once stealing a sandwich, his final act of self-sacrifice makes him one of the most unlikely heroes in the entire saga. So, the next time someone tries to pull a prank on you, ask yourself, are they really a monster? Or are they just a heartbroken Martian who just really misses his wife? In a show filled with cosmic horrors and psychological dungeons, the character Prismo offers a rare moment of philosophical comfort. Prismo is the Wishmaster, a two-dimensional pink shadow-like being who resides in the Time Room and can grant any wish in the multiverse. He is, by all accounts, one of the most powerful entities in existence. But here is the absolute mind-bending secret of Prismo. He is just the dream of an old man sleeping in a farmhouse. This fact breaks the fourth wall, the fifth wall, and maybe a few emotional walls we didn't even know we had. We, the audience, are watching a hyperdimensional wish-granting entity whose entire reality hangs on the respiratory cycle and comfort level of a random old guy. This is the ultimate moment of Adventure Time's existential humour. All of cosmic reality, all the grand wars, all the time loops, and all the possibilities generated by Prismo's powerful wishes, the entire multiverse, arguably, is dependent on whether an unnamed, snoring old man got his pillows just right. This reveals a profound secret about the nature of power in you. The most powerful force in the universe is not magic, but sleep. Prismo is trapped by this reality. He is not a god who chose his power. He is a servant whose existence is entirely conditional. If the old man wakes up, Prismo instantly ceases to exist. He is quite literally a dream coming true, and his greatest fear is the rude awakening of reality. This is why he is so chill, so accommodating, and so preoccupied with his artisanal pickle recipes. The pickles are the philosophical anchor here. Prismo, a being who can rearrange reality with a thought, spends his time obsessing over the perfect balance of garlic and brine for his homemade artisan pickles. Why? Because the pickles represent the small, controllable joys in a vast, overwhelming multiverse. Prismo can't control his own existence. That's up to a sleeping stranger. But he can control the recipe for a perfect pickle. He can find meaning in the mundane. This is the show's way of winking at the audience, offering a surprising piece of wisdom. When you are faced with the terror of an uncontrollable, chaotic universe, like the one that destroyed your parents or turned your friend into a madman, find joy in the little things. Find your pickle recipe. Prismo teaches us to accept the absurdity of our own existence. We're all living in a cosmic time room. We're all dependent on variables we cannot control. The economy, the weather, the decisions of powerful strangers. Trying to understand the whole grand complex system is maddening. So instead of trying to understand the cosmic blueprint, just enjoy the fact that you have a comfy couch, a good movie, and maybe, just maybe, a perfectly fermented jar of spicy dill pickles. Prismo's fate, being trapped between the two dimensions, is both a tragedy and a blessing. He is trapped but he is safe. He is constrained, but he is powerful. And when he eventually meets his temporary demise and the old man wakes up, the sadness is instantly undercut by the image of a bewildered pyjama-clad guy named Jake, no relation, who just wants to go to the bathroom. The real mystery of the time room isn't how Prismo grants wishes. It's how the writers managed to make the most complex existential revelation in the show hinge on a perfect crunch and the scent of vinegar. Turns out, the only way to deal with the vast, terrifying emptiness of the void is to fill it with good-tasting snacks. In a world populated by vampires, wizards, and sentient pieces of gum, it's easy to overlook the true constants of life. One of the most essential, yet utterly ignored characters in the land of Ooh is a small pink worm named Shelby. Shelby lives inside Jake's viola, occasionally offering an observation or a philosophical one-liner before returning to his mundane existence. He is a footnote, a background detail, a tiny segmented piece of absurdity. But here is the secret of Shelby. He is the working-class philosopher of Ooh, and he knows more than any king or wizard in the realm. Shelby represents the grounded, everyman perspective. While Finn and Jake are off fighting cosmic entities and dealing with existential crises, Shelby is dealing with a much more relatable struggle, paying rent, navigating bureaucracy, and dealing with interpersonal drama. In one of his most pivotal yet brief appearances, Shelby is revealed to have a brother, Kent. Kent is a total screw-up who crashes into Shelby's life and tries to move in. Shelby's reaction is not to use magic or fight a monster. It's to have a stressful, deeply relatable conversation about boundaries, cohabitation, and family dysfunction. This is the brilliance of his character. He is the grounding mechanism for the entire show's high fantasy nonsense. When Marceline is singing about her 1,000 years of grief, Shelby is thinking about whether he has enough money for his next meal. When Princess Bubblegum is planning the fate of nations, Shelby is planning his worm wedding and dealing with a family who won't leave him alone. His perspective is often delivered as throwaway lines that hold incredible wisdom. Check, please. A perfect, absurd sign-off after Finn and Jake's latest chaotic resolution. It's the sound of someone who has seen too much and is ready for the day to end. Sometimes, you just gotta relax your muscles, man. A moment of pure, uncomplicated zen in the face of near-death experiences. Shelby's biggest secret is that he is an essential part of Jake's inner harmony. He lives in Jake's instrument, the viola, which is the source of Jake's musical creativity and emotional expression. Shelby is literally vibrating with the good vibrations of Jake's music. He is a tiny, emotional ballast for the hybrid parasite monster. If Jake's alien DNA is his existential dread, Shelby is his conscious choice to be an ordinary, loving, and simple creature. The fact that Shelby eventually finds love, marries a worm named Peppermint Butler, not the original, thankfully, and creates a stable, tiny home inside the chaos of the treehouse is a profound statement. In a world where immortality leads to madness, Ice King, and genius leads to control, bubblegum, the happiest character is the one who accepts his smallness. Shelby doesn't need a wish from Prismo. He doesn't need to fight the Lich. He just needs his family, his viola, and a good vibe. Shelby the Worm proves that heroism isn't just about punching the Lich in the face. Sometimes, the real adventure is simply managing to keep your tiny, complicated life together, when the world around you is exploding in a flurry of pink and blue. And you have to love the irony. In a show about great destinies, the character with the most fully realised and successful life arc is the one whose biggest concern is getting his brother Kent to finally move out. It's comforting, really. Even in the apocalypse, the true enemy is always rent and family drama. The land of Ooh is defined by extremes, cosmic battles, immortal love, and scientific gods. But the unsung majority of Ooh are the regular citizens, the banana guards, the small shopkeepers, and the civil servants. The character who embodies their quiet struggle for relevance is the legendary, yet deeply ordinary, Root Beer Guy. Root Beer Guy starts his journey as a corporate drone. He's a clerk in the Candy Kingdom's bureaucracy, shuffling papers, drinking coffee, and dreaming of an escape. He is completely unremarkable. He's the guy who gets easily forgotten in a room full of brightly coloured people, and that is his secret, the desire to be special in a world where everyone else is literally magic. Root Beer Guy is constantly seeking a purpose that transcends his boring reality. He wants to be a hero, He wants adventure. He wants to feel important. This is the ultimate relatable struggle for the adult viewer who grew up with Adventure Time. The realization that we are not Finn, destined for greatness, but Root Beer Guy, destined for a cubicle. His breakthrough comes when he forms the Candy Kingdom's first detective agency, the CBPP, Candy Bath Protection Patrol. He tries to emulate the daring life of Finn and Jake, solving mundane mysteries like the mystery of the missing cup. This is his moment of self-actualization. He doesn't gain superpowers or find a magic artifact. He simply chooses to use the skills he already has, his meticulous organization and his obsessive nature, to do something meaningful. He proves that even a background character can write their own story. Root Beer Guy's story is a beautiful, inspiring parable about the quiet dignity of the average man. He embraces his blandness and turns it into a strength. He becomes the everyman hero who uses process and dedication instead of magic and stretching powers. But because this is Adventure Time, the universe has to remind us that heroism, especially in OO, comes with a brutal cost. Root Beer Guy eventually earns his dream. He becomes the chief of the Banana Guards, replacing the incompetence of his predecessors with efficient procedural order. He gets the recognition he always craved, and then he dies. In the midst of a massive battle against Uncle Gumbald's forces, Root Beer Guy sacrifices himself to save Princess Bubblegum. It's a moment of profound heroism, a completely average man making the ultimate selfless choice. He gets the grand, dramatic ending he always wanted, proving that his life had purpose. But the tragedy doesn't end with his death. Princess Bubblegum, in her cold, rational pragmatism, resurrects him, but she can't bring back the original. He is revived as Dirt Beer Guy, a Frankenstein's monster made of dirt and various beverages, retaining the memory, but losing the clean, precise identity he had fought so hard to create. This resurrection is incredibly cruel. It robs Root Beer Guy of his perfect heroic ending, and forces him to live on as a rough, messy and complicated version of himself. The secret tragedy of Root Beer Guy is the resilience of the common man. He died a hero, and the universe, or rather, Bubblegum science, dragged him back to a life that is still complicated, still a struggle, and still full of awkward moments. He's forced to accept that life is messy. You can't control your death, and you can't even control your resurrection. You just have to roll with the punches, even if you are made of dirt and root beer. His story is a philosophical gift to the adult viewer. We're reminded that the quiet battle to stay relevant, to keep order in our own little lives, and to choose duty over ease is the real ongoing adventure. Root Beer Guy proved that even if you're a footnote, you can still save the day, and even if you're resurrected as a pile of mud, you can still manage the Banana Guards. The real quest for Root Beer Guy wasn't to be special. It was to accept that life is inherently weird, and sometimes all you need is a perfectly cold, refreshing glass of root beer to survive it. Finn the human spent his life defining himself by his ability to punch evil and maintain his core goodness. So, what happens when Finn's goodness, his heroism, and his physical being are copied, corrupted, and given a sharp, grassy edge? You get Fern, the Grass Knight, one of the most tragic and deeply philosophical characters in the entire series. The secret of Fern is that he is not Finn's enemy. He is Finn's unresolved baggage made manifest. He is the living, breathing shadow self that Carl Jung wrote about, the dark twin who carries all the repressed rage, jealousy, and insecurity that the hero refuses to acknowledge. Fern is born from a convergence of magic, misfortune, and trauma. When Finn loses his physical arm, it is replaced by the mysterious grass sword. This sword, which is cursed and eventually sentient, fuses with the broken essence of the farm world Finn, the version of Finn created by the wish to stop the Lich. This means Fern is a composite of three fundamental concepts: Finn's physical trauma, the loss of his arm; Finn's shadow history, the dark timeline where he was corrupted; the grass sword's curse, a primordial chaotic magic that wants to kill. Fern starts his existence wanting to be Finn. He steals Finn's identity, his clothes, and his relationships, but he fails. Why? Because Fern is Finn without the inner work. He is Finn with all the ability, but none of the emotional foundation. Finn's great strength is his ability to accept his failures, apologise, and keep moving forward. Fern's defining feature is his massive, brittle insecurity. He just wanted to be the hero, but the narrative, the world, only had room for one. The constant tension between the two Finns is heartbreaking to watch. Fern desperately wants to be good, but the grass curse, the anger and bitterness keeps taking over. He becomes cruel, cynical, and manipulative. He feels the unfairness of his creation. Why do I have to be the copy? Why can't I be the real one? This is the secret that resonates with the adult audience. Fern is what happens when you strip away Finn's support system. Finn has Jake, Bubblegum, and BMO to stabilise him. Fern has only the sound of the grass whispering for him to be mean. The story of Fern is a powerful allegory for mental health. He is constantly battling his inner voice, the grass demon, which is telling him that he is worthless, a fake, and that the only way to gain control is through destruction. He is fighting his own, very physicalized depression. The arc culminates in a profound act of acceptance. In the final battle against Golb, Fern finally stops trying to be Finn and accepts himself as he is, the Grass Knight. He sacrifices himself not to save Finn, but to ensure that Finn can continue. As he dies, he turns into a massive, gorgeous tree, a monument to his sacrifice, with Finn's sword embedded in the trunk. This ending is incredibly symbolic. Fern, the shadow, doesn't disappear. He's integrated back into the landscape. Finn doesn't just forget him, he wears a piece of the tree as his new wooden arm. The destruction of the shadow self doesn't mean the removal of darkness, it means its incorporation. Finn accepts that the trauma that created Fern is now part of his identity. He can never go back to being the completely naive kid he once was. He has to carry the memory of his failure, his anger, and his double self. The secret of the Grass Knight is that the most dangerous enemy Finn ever faced wasn't a wizard or a lich. It was the man in the mirror, and the only way to win that fight is not to punch him, but to hug him until he turns into a tree. We've already covered the agonizing tragedy of Simon Petrikov, the historian cursed to become the Ice King, but every tragedy has two victims. The second, and arguably the more active victim in the show's final lore, is Simon's fiancée, Betty Grof. Betty is introduced as a kind, brilliant, slightly flighty magic researcher from the pre-war era. She loved Simon fiercely, and when she realised the Ice Crown was consuming him, she was terrified. In a desperate time-travelling moment, she jumps forward 1,000 years just to save him. The secret of Betty is that her love for Simon eventually metastasized into a toxic, world-altering obsession. Betty Grof's journey is a cautionary tale about what happens when love becomes a singular focus, divorced from the rest of the universe. When she arrives in Oo, she isn't interested in the Candy Kingdom, the Lich, or Finn's problems. She only cares about one thing: reversing the curse and bringing Simon back. She will lie, cheat, steal, and use any magical means necessary to achieve this goal. This sets her on a terrifying path. She doesn't become a villain, but she becomes a destructive force of nature, blinded by her singular, fixed purpose. Think about the damage she causes. She uses Magic Man's powers. She tricks the heartbroken Martian into giving up his cosmic powers, not caring that this act further unravels his fragile, broken mind. She uses the Enchiridion. She manipulates the Book of Heroes for her selfish ends. She messes with primal forces. She begins a frightening descent into using dark, chaotic magic, often consulting shady wizards and dangerous entities, all while wearing a perfectly innocent expression. Betty's entire existence is driven by the denial of one simple truth. The man she loved, Simon, is gone. The Ice King is not Simon. He is a result of Simon's sacrifice. Betty refuses to accept the permanence of the change. She believes that if she tries hard enough, she can rewind history and reclaim her past. This is the central emotional secret of her character. She is fighting the war against time itself, and she's willing to destroy the present to reclaim a perfect past. This desperation climaxes in the series finale when she makes the ultimate horrible choice. She realizes that to defeat the primordial force of discord Golb, she needs an act of pure, powerful chaos. Instead of sacrificing herself to a more benevolent force, she chooses to fuse with Golb, transforming into an all-powerful entity of chaos and order. She makes this deal not to save but to ensure that Simon is freed from the crown and lives the rest of his life as the man he was. In that final, tragic moment, she succeeds. She saves Simon. She trades her sanity and her very existence for his. Is that romantic, or is it terrifying? Betty Grof's story forces us to look at the line between selfless love and toxic obsession. She saved one man, but in doing so she became the agent of a world-ending force, committing an act of cosmic self-annihilation. She chose to save the man she loved over saving the world, and in doing so she became the ultimate example of how sometimes the most profound acts of destruction are born from the most profound acts of love. Simon is free, but he is alone again. He has his sanity, but the woman who provided the ultimate sacrifice is gone forever, fused into the fabric of the universe as a benevolent but terrifying god. And you have to wonder, is Simon truly saved? Or has he been sentenced to an agonizing eternity of freedom, knowing that his existence cost Betty her soul? If the Lich is the inevitable death of all things, then the ultimate final antagonist of the entire Adventure Time saga is his cosmic counterpoint, Golb. Golb is the pure primordial entity of discord and chaos. He's introduced late in the series, but his presence has haunted the lore for millennia. He's the reason Magic Man lost his fiancée Margles, and the entity that every wizard and king secretly fears. The secret of Golb is that he isn't evil in the way the Lich is evil. He doesn't want to destroy life, he wants to unravel it. When Golb appears, he doesn't use fire or ice or swords, he uses anti-logic. He turns order into nonsense. He takes complex emotional bonds and reduces them to simple, terrified screams. He is the ultimate enemy of structure, sense, and civilization. In the finale, when Golb invades the Candy Kingdom, he doesn't kill the Banana Guards. He turns them into monstrous, screaming, fused abominations of flesh and geometry. He takes the meticulously crafted Candy Kingdom, Bubblegum's greatest achievement of order, and twists it into an abstract, expressionist nightmare. The difference between Golb and the Lich is critical to the show's philosophy. The Lich wants absolute zero, total silence, and perfect order. Death. Golb wants absolute noise, total confusion, and perfect discord. Chaos. To survive, the heroes had to figure out how to live with the Lich, by wishing him away or trapping him. To defeat Golb, they had to embrace the opposite of the Lich, not life, but harmony. This leads to the most crucial moment of the final battle. Finn, Jake, Bubblegum, and the Ice King are swallowed by Golb. Trapped in his chaotic gut, they are losing their form and their sanity. The only way out is not to fight or to wish, but to sing. Marceline and Simon begin to sing their song, the Waiting in the Closet lullaby. This act of pure, synchronized harmony, a sound of love and memory, creates a counterwave of order that Golb cannot absorb. The secret power of music is the ultimate weapon against Golb. Music is mathematical, it is structured, it is emotional, but it adheres to rules of rhythm and melody. When Marceline and Simon sing, they are creating a beacon of sense in the face of universal madness. This is the profound philosophical secret Golb reveals. Acceptance of chaos is the only way to survive but the power of love and harmony is the only way to tame it. Betty Grof, in her final act, realizes that to defeat Golb she can't use order. She fuses with Golb, becoming a new harmonized entity, a chaotic power with a human heart. She sacrifices herself to create a balance, essentially absorbing the discord and transforming it into a force that can leave in peace. Golb's story teaches us that the cosmos isn't just cruel, it's also incredibly messy. We're all swimming in a random, confusing reality, and the only thing that saves us from being turned into a screaming fused banana guard is the consistent rhythmic choice to find harmony with the people we love. And that, my friends, is why we have music. Not to fight the darkness, but to sing loud enough so that the darkness can't turn us into abstract art. We have explored the tragic fallout of the Ice Crown on Simon Petrikov and Betty Grof. but to truly appreciate the sheer arbitrary malice of this artifact, we need to understand its mechanics. The secret of the Ice Crown is that it isn't powered by ancient evil or demonic pacts. It's simply a powerful cosmic wish magic circuit that malfunctioned. The crown is the ultimate testament to the destructive power of a misplaced wish. We learn the crown was originally forged by a powerful ice elemental named Evergreen, millions of years before the current events of the show. Evergreen created it to stop a catastrophic catalyst comet. He intended to use it to execute a singular pure wish, to eradicate the comet. However, because Evergreen was arrogant, he delegated the task of powering the crown to his nervous lesser apprentice, a massive dinosaur named Gunther, not the penguin, but a very important dinosaur. The core, heartbreaking secret here is that Gunther's one true wish was never about saving the world. Gunther's deep internal desire, fueled by an inferiority complex, was to be like his master Evergreen. When the comet arrived and Evergreen was incapacitated, it was Gunther who put on the crown. And the crown, a powerful magical machine, latched onto the nearest, deepest desire it could find, the wish to be a powerful ice wizard. The result was immediate and catastrophic. The crown didn't fulfill the wish perfectly. It fulfilled it by driving the wearer insane, forcing them into a cycle of protection and madness, and permanently locking them into the persona of an ice wizard. The crown is, essentially, a magical piece of broken software. It is a brilliant piece of engineering corrupted by a moment of psychological panic. This recontextualizes the whole tragedy of the Ice King. When Simon put on the crown, it didn't implant a new demon. It just accessed his deepest, most desperate desire, to protect Betty, and ran it through the corrupted Ice Wizard operating system. The cycle repeats through history. Every person who wears the crown is immediately reduced to their most pathetic core self, warped into an ice wizard who shouts about princesses. It is powered by the anxiety of the moment, filtered through the broken wish of a terrified dinosaur. This is a beautiful, surreal piece of world-building that reveals a deep secret about magic in you. Magic is rarely intelligent. It is just an engine that magnifies emotion. The crown is terrible not because it is dark, but because it is dumb. It can grant cosmic power, but it can't distinguish between a noble protector and a pathetic old man. It just runs the program. Protect the princess. Be the wizard. Be insane. The true genius of the crown's lore is the ultimate moment of absurdity. The Ice King, the perceived villain, was carrying around the most powerful Wishmaster engine in the world, and he used it to create talking snow cones, chase princesses, and write bad fan fiction. He didn't use it to conquer the world because the crown wasn't powered by conquest. It was powered by a child's deep-seated need for validation, which is an incredibly unstable energy source. The crown forces us to confront the fact that sometimes the greatest dangers in life aren't the things with malice, but the things that are broken, powerful, and operating without supervision. So the next time you see the Ice King flying around, remember that he is just an antique piece of software running on a catastrophic memory leak, fueled by the desperate wish of a dinosaur who wanted to be cool. And that, in a bizarre way, is the most tragic secret of all. We've talked about the dinosaur named Gunther who wished to be cool and created the Ice Crown. Now let's talk about the other Gunther, the small, waddling, perpetually wanking penguin who is the Ice King's pet. On the surface, Gunther is the ultimate comic relief. He breaks bottles, steals socks, and receives an endless stream of affectionate scolding from his owner. He is adorable, simple, and completely harmless. And that, my friends, is his deepest, most shocking secret. The cutest character in Ooh is actually a destroyer of worlds. Gunther is in fact the cosmic entity known as Orgolorg, the breaker of worlds. The lore reveal is mind-bending. Orgolorg was a primordial entity of absolute destruction, a massive, multi-limbed creature who constantly attempted to absorb the energy of falling catalyst comets. He was a cosmic siphon of power, existing solely to consume the forces that shape the universe. He was so dangerous, so powerful, and such a threat to all existence that he was eventually subdued, cursed, and banished to Earth by the space police. The magic that contained him forced him to take on the most insignificant, least threatening form possible, a tiny, harmless penguin. This completely reframes every interaction the Ice King ever had with his favourite pet. The Ice King, the sad, broken wizard, was completely unaware that he was keeping a cosmic catastrophe in check with a simple fish diet and a spray bottle. The perceived villain of the series was unknowingly acting as the universe's most effective jailer. The irony here is so thick it could be syrup. The Ice King spent his life trying to acquire power and impress princesses, all while the greatest power in the galaxy, a monster who can flatten solar systems, was sitting on his lap demanding belly rubs. Orgolog's secret is the ultimate embodiment of the show's central theme. The most dangerous things in the universe often hide behind the most benign facades. His cover story is perfection. Who would suspect a small penguin? The curse was so effective that Orgolog Gunter truly believed he was just a penguin. He waddled, he pecked, he even gave birth to a cat, because, well, adventure time. The containment was nearly absolute. The only time Orgolog surfaces is when the conditions are exactly right. When Gunter is exposed to the unique gravitational pull of a passing comet, the curse is temporarily lifted. He regains his true form, begins to speak in a terrifying, resonant voice, and immediately starts trying to consume the cosmic energy of the comet. But even then, Gunter's penguin conditioning holds fast. He is easily distracted by Finn, defeated by a hug, and quickly reverts to his small, wank-ing self. This proves that even the most deeply ingrained nature can be suppressed by habit and the love of a mad owner. It teaches us that, like Jake choosing to be a dog instead of a parasitic monster, Gunter Orgolog chooses subconsciously to be a penguin. He chooses the comfort of simplicity over the terror of his own potential. So, the next time you see a sweet, small, harmless creature, remember the fate of Gunter. Remember that you never truly know what cosmic horror might be lurking in a tiny body. And the next time the Ice King yells at Gunter for stealing his socks, remember that he isn't scolding a pet. He is inadvertently keeping the world safe from a dimension-shattering menace with a can of tuna and a whole lot of misguided love. That, my friends, is heroic parenting. In a series full of magical artifacts and chaotic entities, some of the most profound secrets are held by the things that are completely passive. One of the most hauntingly beautiful entities in Ooh is the music hole. The music hole is exactly what it sounds like. A seemingly random geological feature, a hole in the ground that emits perfect, tailored, melancholic music. But the music is not for everyone. The deep secret of the music hole is its purpose. It only sings to those who have lost something essential, and it sings the specific song of their missing piece. The music hole is an emotional geyser. It doesn't talk, it doesn't fight, and it doesn't give quests. It simply exists to acknowledge profound loss. When characters like Finn or Marceline sit beside it, the music hole creates a soundtrack to their deepest, unexpressed grief. This function elevates the music hole beyond a magical quirk and makes it a core metaphor for the healing power of art. Think about the context of the show. Every single character is dealing with historical trauma. Simon lost his sanity. Marceline lost her mother and her innocence. Bubblegum lost her civilization. Finn lost his entire family. There are no therapists. There are no support groups. So, where does a 1,000-year-old vampire process her endless grief? She goes to the hole in the ground that plays her a sad, perfect song about her life. The music hole is the show's way of winking and saying, "We see you. We know this world is broken, and it's okay to cry." This entity represents the quiet, shared melancholy that underlies the show's entire narrative. It speaks to the adult viewer who grew up with Adventure Time and realized that the whimsical world they loved was built on a pile of existential ash. It's the moment of recognition that life is bittersweet. The music it creates is always deeply resonant, a perfect composition of wistful melodies and reflective harmonies. It proves that the most powerful magic isn't the kind that blows things up. It's the kind that validates your internal pain. Furthermore, the music hole serves as the ultimate voice of the show's creators and the audience's emotional connection to the narrative. The show is constantly evolving, moving away from simple quests toward complex emotional closure. The music hole guides the characters toward acceptance of their past. It doesn't tell Finn to fight harder. It tells him that his search for connection is beautiful. It doesn't tell Marceline to move on. It plays her a song that acknowledges her 1,000 years of loneliness. In a philosophical sense, the music hole proves that beauty often comes from brokenness. You can only hear the true complexity of life when you accept its sadness. The hole is a scar on the landscape, and scars, when they heal, often sing, and that leads us perfectly to the conclusion of this sprawling, complicated saga. The music hole is the sound of everything that happens when you stop fighting the inevitable and just accept the beautiful, sad song that the universe is singing about you. So, if you found yourself tearing up during any of this deep dive, maybe you too are sitting next to your own music hole. And what song is it playing just for you? We have travelled from Finn's traumatic inner vault to the cosmic chaos of Golb. We've dissected the secrets of gods, kings, vampires, and one very anxious penguin. We've seen that the land of Oo is not just a fantasy world. It is a sprawling, beautiful, heartbreaking history of trauma, resilience, and the relentless cycle of life. This brings us to the final, most essential secret of the show, one that is whispered in the last moments of the entire saga. Everything stays, but everything changes. The series finale gives us a glimpse 1,000 years into the future, introducing us to the new adventurers, Shermie and Beth. Shermie is the small boy, carrying a mechanical arm and a spirit of pure adventure, the spiritual successor to Finn. Beth is the tough, heroic dog, the spiritual successor to Jake. This future is the ultimate secret the show reveals about its own lore. History doesn't just repeat itself, it echoes. Civilizations rise, they fall, they turn into relics, and then new heroes emerge from the ashes of the old. The prize ball guardian we saw in earlier seasons has collapsed. The Candy Kingdom is a ruin, and Finn and Jake are long gone. But the spirit of adventure, the noodle arms, the friendship, the simple quest for a cool sword, it all remains. The cycle of Oo is the final philosophical gift. Immortality is a curse. Simon, Bubblegum, and Marceline gained eternal life, but it only served to stretch their pain across epochs. True closure only came when they made peace with their limitations. Simon giving up the crown, Bubblegum accepting Marceline, Marceline letting go of Hambo. Destiny is a choice. Finn was meant to be the Lich. He was meant to be his father. He was meant to be the grass demon. But he chose, every time, to be Finn the human. He chose kindness over power. The world is inherently messy. The show never resolves the chaos. It never makes Oo safe. The world is still full of monsters and magic. But the heroes stop trying to fix the world and start trying to live in it. The emotional complexity of the show lies in that bittersweet acceptance. We don't get a classic happily ever after. We get a beautiful, melancholy song about a massive dying tree, Fern's final form, and the quiet assurance that two new kids will eventually climb it. The enduring secret of Adventure Time is that the real adventure isn't finding the treasure. It's the long, difficult, hilarious, and sometimes terrifying process of learning how to be a good person when the universe is actively trying to turn you into a screaming monster. The show teaches us that the only things that truly last in the face of cosmic entropy are friendship, kindness, and a catchy song. So, here is the final thought. When you watch Shermie and Beth ride off into the distance, you're watching a reflection of your own childhood. You're watching the moment you realise that life isn't about being saved by a hero, but about picking up the sword yourself and choosing to be good. And that, my friends, is why we still love this silly, beautiful, deeply depressing cartoon. The Lich, the embodiment of death and extinction in Adventure Time, is more than just a powerful villain. His mastery extends to terrifying mind control. One of the most chilling theories around his powers is his ability to command and manipulate other beings, essentially turning victims into unwilling agents of destruction. Every time the Lich uses his command ability, he spreads his will like a plague, turning heroes and innocents alike into extensions of his extinction agenda. His control isn't charismatic persuasion, but an overpowering psychic domination that leaves victims stripped of free will. The Lich's presence broadcasts a signal of decay, infecting minds and bending them toward inevitability, the end of all life. This ability explains how he orchestrates chaos on a scale far beyond brute strength, turning entire armies into soulless forces dedicated to annihilation. This mind control reflects the Lich's deeper purpose, not just to kill physically, but to erase existence itself, corrupting the essence of life through mental enslavement. His command power makes him a walking apocalypse signal, a contagion that wipes out hope by erasing autonomy. In the post-apocalyptic world of Ooh, where mutation and magic intermingle, the Lich's brainwashing power is the ultimate weapon, turning friends into foes, heroes into puppets, and freedom into endless servitude to nihilism. It's extinction's insidious whisper that no one can resist, sealing cosmic despair behind a crown of ice. Every command is a step closer to oblivion, making the Lich's intellect as deadly as his dark magic. This ability cements him as not only Ooh's darkest villain, but the living embodiment of the end of all things. Lumpy Space Princess, LSP, with her lumpy purple form and dramatic personality, is more than just comic relief. This theory uncovers a grim reality behind her appearance and symptoms. LSP embodies chronic radiation sickness caused by post-mushroom war fallout. Those lumps aren't just lumps. They're grotesque tumours or cysts resulting from cellular mutation and radiation damage, making her a living symbol of the nuclear apocalypse's physical toll. Her erratic mood swings, emotional instability, and unpredictable behaviour mirror the psychological effects of radiation poisoning. Hormonal disruption, neurological damage, and chronic pain manifesting as volatile bursts of anger and despair. Unlike the whimsical mutations of other characters, LSP's external deformities and internal chaos reflect the ongoing suffering of irradiated survivors, marking her as a tragic figure trapped in a body ravaged by environmental catastrophe. LSP's rapid aging, occasional immunity to pain, and the way she suddenly becomes lumpy during stress reflect the progressive, degenerative nature of radiation sickness. She's a cautionary ghost haunting Ooh's brightly coloured facade, a physical reminder that beneath the magic and mutation lies the long shadow of human-made devastation. Her dramatic tantrums and constant need for attention can be read as seeking relief from chronic suffering, a cry from someone who knows no escape from the fallout's grip. Lumpy Space Princess isn't the carefree teenager she pretends to be. She's radiation personified, a symbol of Ooh's poisoned legacy wrapped in sassy sass. Martin, Finn's absentee father, isn't just a charming rogue. This theory reveals a chilling truth. Martin is a human vessel for the Lich, the embodiment of death and annihilation in Adventure Time. While Finn inherited the last traces of humanity, his father carries within him the seed of ultimate destruction, unwittingly or otherwise serving as a Trojan horse for the Lich's return. Throughout the series, Martin's reckless, self-serving behaviour hints at something darker lurking beneath the surface, a detachment from human empathy and a hidden connection to the cosmic forces of entropy. This symbiosis between man and Lich suggests that Martin's very body is a puppet to the Lich's will, used to infiltrate or manipulate the remaining human lineage to advance extinction. From a narrative perspective, Martin embodies the duality of legacy in a post-apocalyptic world. The biological lineage Finn carries is tainted not just by survival, but by latent corruption from his father's bond with the Lich. This deepens the tragedy of Finn's heroism, making his fight not just against external monsters, but against the darkness within his own bloodline. If Martin is the Lich's vessel, every interaction between father and son carries high stakes, not just for milicide, but the survival of humanity itself. Finn's journey becomes a battle for purity, hope, and reclamation against the inherited shadow of death. This theory adds a layer of fatalism and complexity, making Martin not merely a flawed dad, but the human Trojan horse of apocalypse in the land of Ooh. On the surface, Wizard City's tests seem like traditional magical education, apprentices honing spells, earning their wizard hats. But this theory exposes a harrowing truth lurking behind the classroom doors. These exams are elaborate sacrifices designed to feed magical energy to demonic entities lurking just beyond reality's veil. Every failed student, every botched ritual isn't merely academic failure. They become offerings, dismembered bits of power harvested to fuel cosmic horrors, threatening Ooh's fragile balance. The failures disappear or transform into nightmarish creatures, feeding a dark economy of power behind the scenes. Graduation is a trap, a magic funnel harvesting raw human energy, creating fuel for eldritch beasts that burrow into Ooh's foundations. The exams cultivate despair and chaos, ensuring magic remains unstable and controlled by unseen forces. This sinister mechanism explains why the magical curriculum feels both unpredictable and deadly. It's not just learning, It's gambling with your very soul, where spells are jury-rigged runes in a high-stakes survival game. Those who succeed buy time, those who don't amplify magical entropy. In a post-apocalyptic world where magic arose from nuclear disaster, these sacrifices aren't a glitch, they're a feature. Wizard City is not a sanctuary but a feeding ground, where the price of knowledge is far darker than any spell taught. So when a young wizard faces their final test, remember, they aren't just casting spells. They're walking a razor's edge between power and oblivion, where failure means becoming just another broken note in Oo's cosmic dirge. BMO, the endearing living game console, hides a secret deeper than pixelated fun. This theory suggests that BMO's beloved game, Guardians of Sunshine, is more than just a pastime. It's a coded prophecy, a meta-narrative reflecting Oo's looming apocalypse. The digital levels, bosses, and endless respawns symbolize the cyclical, inescapable nature of the Mushroom War's fallout, and the never-ending struggle between hope and destruction. BMO isn't just a friend. It's a relic of pre-war AI designed to simulate and prepare survivors for the endless challenges of a radioactive world. The game's bosses aren't just enemies. They're analogues for real threats like the Lich, Golb, and the Nightosphere's demons, programmed as warnings embedded in BMO's memory banks. Players, or viewers, controlling BMO mirror the character's attempts to play with fate, constantly fighting, falling, restarting, as if trapped in a digital purgatory. The repetitive game loops hint that Oo's story is less a linear tale and more a loop of destruction and rebirth, with BMO as the digital archivist, endlessly preserving fragments of hope in a broken world. Guardians of Sunshine is a post-apocalyptic video game within a post-apocalyptic narrative, a haunting symbol of survival through play, echoing the pain and resilience carved into Oo's very code. Because in Adventure Time, even the games are warnings, BMO's cheerful screens flicker with the ghost of a world forever trapped in the cycle of loss and restart. The final level, still loading. Golb, the ultimate chaos god with his skull face and reality-warping maw, isn't some ancient deity. He's the mushroom bomb itself, personified as a self-summoning echo of nuclear annihilation that loops eternally through Oo's timeline. Born from the warhead's detonation, Golb embodies the bomb's mutagenic fury. Green skies, mutations, dimensional rifts, all symptoms of his inescapable presence. Ooh never escaped the blast. It's trapped in perpetual detonation. Every portal, every catastrophe, is Golb re-invoking himself, Betty's fusion, temporary stasis, not defeat. The Lich crawls from his ooze, demons leak from Nightosphere cracks, Finn's grass arm sprouts fallout flora, Golb auto-invokes via chaos spikes, ensuring apocalypse recycles. In Farm World, averting the bomb birth's megalich, main timeline detonates, spawning him fully. No victory breaks the cycle. Heroes punch symptoms, bomb persists as god. Post-mushroom war magic, Golb's radiation birthing candy, rainicorns, stretchy pups. Simon's crown, pre-war relic amplified by his aura. Ooh rebuilds on bomb crater, every adventure dancing on detonation's lip. Marceline survives as half-demon bridge. Finn fights last human extinction. Loop's genius. Resistance feeds him. Hope is fuel. Finale. Happy ending. Illusion. Golb waits in multiversal cracks. Bombs half-life infinite. Oo's whimsy masks eternal fallout. Nukes won. Gods wear their skin. We've wandered Oo's radioactive ruins. Stared into the Lich's void. Watched Simon vanish behind Ice King's beard. All while candy people panic and penguins plot cosmic revenge. Adventure Time's genius lies in that tension. Apocalypse wrapped in whimsy, letting us confront extinction through Finn's sword swings and Jake's bacon pancakes. These disturbing theories aren't just fan speculation, they're the show's core heartbeat. Kids see adventure, adults see therapy. The Mushroom War echoes our nuclear anxieties. Marceline's immortality mirrors climate dread. Outliving everyone you love. Bubblegum's control frets over surveillance states. We crave this lore because it processes the unprocessable. World's end, people forget, chaos wins sometimes. But Finn keeps swinging anyway. Nostalgia hits different now. That bedtime show from childhood. It's a survival manual disguised as cartoons, teaching resilience through trauma, love through loss, heroism despite futility. We fall asleep to it because facing Oo's horrors head-on makes our own feel survivable. Bad things happen, everything changes, yet stories persist, like BMO reciting legends to wasteland ghosts. In a broken world, Adventure Time whispers, the real magic is carrying on. Sweet dreams? Nah. But meaningful ones? Absolutely. What theory haunts you most? Drop it below. We'll unpack it next adventure. Thank you for joining this deep dive.